Alright guys, welcome to the channel. I'm a product development engineer with 20 years experience, and this is a very simple product. In fact, it's as simple as it could possibly be. It is a single part. And what I'm going to do is I am going to go through and explain every engineering detail that I could possibly think of how I would do it and what I would put into it, from the industrial design, the user experience, the materials, the manufacturing processes, features, you name it. I'm going to go into it, and then we'll see how this one stacks up. If that sounds interesting to you, then stick around. All right, so let's get into it. Let's start with industrial design. My motto on industrial design is, if you're going to make it, you might as well make it look good. You're making it for somebody, so might as well make it something that they enjoy looking at. And so I would want to give it, make it not just a simple shape, not just a rectangular shape. Maybe have some hard edges, some straight cuts along with curves. Give it some chamfers, just liven it up a little bit, make it something not basic, but not overly complicated either, because you do want it to look classy. I would give it alternating finishes, pick a nice matte finish that, gives contrasting reflections to maybe a higher gloss finish. And I would probably want a rich, vibrant color that really catches the eye, and also kind of makes it stand out in your toolbox or in your garage. So, all right, moving on to user experience and utility. So this is a tool tray, so having some places for hex bits would be good. 15 sounds like a good number. Multiple spaces for different kinds of nuts would be good. Have them be different sizes. Have one be bigger for longer bolts, and that bigger one, I would definitely want some ribs in the middle of it to help keep it supported a little bit. So if you're spanning different surfaces, it doesn't just fall in with the weight of what's ever in it. Maybe have some slots to put some longer wrenches, like so, maybe that can span across there. Yeah. And in general, it's not that complicated what it needs to do, but there are a lot of details that can help it do it. So moving on from user experience and utility to material. Now that's going to be a big one, because this is a single part. So the material you pick is going to make a big difference on the properties and what it can do. So, but for this, if I would want it, because it's a single part and because it's going to be around things that are hot and things that stain, I'm going to want this to be silicone. And that's typically what higher end items are made out of. You don't just make any old rubber thing out of silicone, because silicone's expensive. It has high temperature resistance, high chemical resistance, tear resistance, weather resistance. It's just an awesome material, which is why it's used in the medical industry a lot. It accepts any finish you can throw at it, and it with explicit detail. I mean, if you put a bead blast matte finish on it, it will show up, and if you put a mirror finish, it will show up. So that's one of the nice things about it. Also, this does need to be a good friction material for, you're on an angled surface. You don't want your tools and your parts just to fly off. So, but we'll address that more a little later on, because that gets complicated. Silicone is a very lubricious material. Low surface energy is kind of the technical term for it, which is one of the reasons that it doesn't accept stains and adhesives don't stick to it, which means it can be slippery depending on the finish, but we'll talk about that. This does need high friction. So how do you deal with that? Because actually in a rubber part, it's not the same way of getting friction as it is in a hard plastic or a metal part. It's actually the opposite. So and that points to a deeper kind of reality about friction, which is there's an adhesion mode, which is how rubbers generate friction. It's kind of like, it's on the molecular level, molecular adhesion. And then hard plastics, they deal with like mechanical interlocking or deformation of like, if you looked at it on on the microscopic scale on a hard part, you would see actual ridges that were rubbing up against one another that actually needed to deform. That's kind of how hard parts make friction. But with rubber, if you looked at it on a microscopic level, those features are not stiff, and so they don't actually add much to friction. What you want for rubber to have high friction on a dry surface, that's a big caveat on a dry surface, is you actually want a high gloss finish. And so I would put a high gloss finish on the bottom, and I would put purely for function, to maximize that friction, and also to make a nice contrast between the matte finish and the gloss. And then on the top, to resist staining and to make it look real velvety and buttery, I would put a matte finish in the tool. So, and if I was going to pick a silicone, I wouldn't pick the highest end silicone, because this application just doesn't need it. Just this being silicone is going to get 99% of the benefits of picking silicone without having to pick a really high end version of silicone. So I would probably pick a peroxide cured silicone, not a platinum cure. It's going to make processing, it's going to be a little easier, it's going to last a little longer on the shelf. So those cost benefits, are going to add up, and you'll see there's some other ones. It's an easier process. No reason to have food grade. You don't need to eat off of it. So there's 3 cost savings right there. The raw material, easier to process, and don't make it food grade. And then for the specific manufacturing process, there's a couple of things to choose from, a couple of different processes you could use to process silicone. And because, again, we're getting 99% of the benefit of this being silicone, it doesn't need to be most high-end process like liquid silicone is a process where it's literally liquid injected into 2 parts into the mold, and that makes highly intricate, detailed parts, and we just don't need that. So I would use compression molding and save that cost over the liquid silicone rubber process. The downside, really the only downside, is going to be you're going to have a visible mold parting line, and you can actually see that right there. Let me get my handy dandy pointer out. You can see that because compression molding needs an overflow, because it's not injecting liquid into the mold. You actually start with a blank or a preform, and so you need to, and the preform has a higher volume than the actual part, so you do need to start, you need to have a place for that extra material to kind of go as the 2 molds come together and smush this into this shape. You need to have a place for it to go, and then that means you have to clean that overflow parting line, off after the fact. You can use tools to do it. You can do it by hand, but again, you're saving some money because you're using a cheaper process than the liquid silicone process. And then finally, on the mold specs. So what would I do to the mold to get a nice result? So I would probably pick an SPI. I'm leaning towards a D2 because a D3 can be a little gritty looking, and it actually starts to go the other way. Like D2 looks really high end. It's velvety. And then when you go to a D3, it starts to have more of that orange peel look, and you can go the other way as far as how high end the look and feel is. So I would pick and my favorite combination with a D2 is an A1 or an A2. This looks like an A1, and that's what I would pick too. It's just such a nice contrast. And then obviously maybe not obviously, a matte surface finish on the microscopic level, it has little indents. So you need to put a bigger you can kind of see, you see that line in the background? You can kind of see, I'm holding it roughly flat, and you can kind of see that angle in the draft angle of the mold. And you need a big draft angle so that you don't see streak marks as this gets pulled out of the mold. You don't want that texture to the texture that's in the mold to actually drag and make scrape marks on the side of the mold. So you do want to have a nice big draft, especially on this side that has the finish in it. And you don't really need to care about that on the high gloss side, but even so, there's not really any edges that are vertical in the direction of the mold pull on that side, so it wouldn't matter anyway. So now, how does that compare to what Harbor Freight actually did? And I've got great news for everybody. For $8.99, that's exactly what Harbor Freight did, which is crazy. That they're giving us this level of quality made out of high-end silicone material and excellent mold finishes, and this awesome look and this industrial design and this utility. They're giving us, this material that can take 375 degrees Fahrenheit of temperature and resist all kinds of acids and staining and stuff like that. They're giving us that, exactly what I would want to do if I was given the design freedom to just make this thing as badass as I could possibly make it. That's exactly what Harbor Freight did, which is just mind-blowing. So I approve, and I have no notes. I have no notes, guys. So if this type of content was interesting to you, then give me a comment below on anything that you think I missed, anything I got wrong. Otherwise, please like, share, subscribe if you think I earned it. And if you have a project that you're working on and you want to hit me up and see what I think, then hit me up on the app called Minect. The link is actually in the description below. So yeah, thanks guys. Have a good day.